we're so great to live in a free country like Canada. It's just everyone isn't entitled to some sort of government grant in perpetuity. There was a need there for 25 years. The need is now being addressed elsewhere.
That's John Baird earlier on the program. Now, remember, he touched off a firestorm in the House of Commons after he said that a group called the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy had their $5.2 million funding canceled. He alluded to the fact that they did 10 reports on promoting a carbon tax, and maybe that's why they were canceled. I asked him if that's why. He says no, but the question is, why were they canceled? What's their view on the fact that after 25 years, this group, with a new report out today, why they're canceled? Let's find out their view. Joining me now, David McLaughlin, the President and CEO of the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy. Good to see you, David.
Good to see you, Adam.
We just had John Baird on the program, and I asked him straight up, why was the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy killed? Your funding is gone. I asked him if it was politically motivated. You saw the clips about because of the recommendations on the carbon tax. He said no, but what do you make of that? Was the support, the recommendations for a carbon tax, in your mind, behind the cancellation of your funding?
Well, we had never actually recommended a carbon tax, ever.
What about this where they said 10 times you put it?
No, we had, there's about 3 reports that actually talked about carbon pricing. And carbon pricing, you can, not to get overly technical, it can be a carbon tax or it can be a cap-and-trade system. We, in fact, recommended a cap-and-trade system, which was pretty close and pretty consistent with where the government at the day was going in terms of looking at their turning the corner plan, and that's where the U.S. was going. And we did that after, in fact, the carbon tax election, of 2008. So we weren't ever going to recommend a carbon tax.
So when John Baird, I just want to read it.
Sure.
It has tabled more than 10 reports encouraging a carbon tax. Is that accurate?
No. No, we didn't table. We've had a fair number of reports on climate change, but we never actually recommended a carbon tax. We did recommend carbon pricing, of which, as I said, a carbon tax can be part of it. And, there's going to be impacts on consumers and others with that. But that was all designed for meeting the government's own targets for climate change. It's,
okay, so this is interesting. I'm not suggesting that, and we can get at it if this was a political thing, but let's get the facts straight. Both Peter Kent and John Baird have said you've had more than 10 reports encouraging a carbon tax, and they say those of us on this side of the House will not let them do it. So that's not an accurate representation of your group.
No, we didn't ever recommend, as I say, a carbon tax as the policy to go. We did talk about carbon pricing in 3 or 4 different reports. And in the one report that said, here's a carbon pricing policy for Canada, we very explicitly said cap and trade versus would be preferable over carbon tax.
So was it a politically motivated cancellation?
Well, I guess you'd have to, ask them.
I would appreciate, you got to be careful, right?
Well, I am a government and council appointee. I'm the President CEO of the Roundtable until my term is done. I have an obligation to fulfill that, and the government has made a decision. We don't decide budgets. We have to respect that decision and comply with that, and we will.
Well, they basically said your stuff's out of date, that 25 years ago no one else was doing this kind of thing, so you were useful. Now you can get this stuff from universities and from the internet, and basically this stuff's all available. Is your organization basically past its prime? Is it out of date?
Well, I certainly don't think so in the sense of the time that I spent at it. In the 5 years that I've been there, website visits have doubled. We've actually issued more reports than the Roundtable has ever done before. The carbon pricing report was downloaded 35,000 times. So why, there's obviously some appetite out there for it. But the Roundtable isn't just about research. Our research was original. We tried to do that because we tried to offer some ideas based on original research. But we convened. We brought people together. Issues of environment and economy, they're not just one or the other. It's about how you blend them together, and you need a place to do that, and that's also what the Roundtable did.
You released a report today. It's this report, Canada's Opportunity, Adopting Life Cycle Approaches for Sustainable Development. All right. Again, you won't be issuing any more of these kind of reports, but who commissioned this report?
The government did. The Minister of the Environment, Peter Kent, came to the Roundtable in March of last year and gave us a letter and said, look, we'd like you to do 2 pieces of work. This was the first one that's been released, and we'll have another one, which will be our last report, really, out in a few weeks, and said that the Roundtable is uniquely positioned to give the government advice, I'm almost quoting from the letter, on sustainable development issues. And we thought it was a very good thing, and give him them credit for saying, look, this issue of life cycle approaches to sustainable development is an important one. Take a look at it for us and give us some research and some advice on what we might do about it. And that's in fact what we did.
So
and released it today.
The Minister of the Environment commissioned this,
that's right.
Peter Kent, saying that you're uniquely positioned to give advice, and now you're hearing a year later that your advice is not useful.
Well, there we are. So, I mean, I can only operate and deal with the situation that I'm given and the cards that I'm dealt with. We were asked to do that work. We were given a year to do it, no extra budget, and we were delighted to do so. And we think it's a good piece of work. And frankly, if you look in the news release, Sobeys, Canadian Tire gave supportive quotes. They thought it was a very good piece of work. So business is actually seeing good value in the work of the Roundtable too.
It talks about life cycle costs,
yes.
and internalizing costs. It includes talk about the oil sands here.
Yes.
You know the big debate that Thomas Mulcair said the oil sands have to internalize their costs. In other words, make sure that the pollution is calculated in. Clearly, this has become a very political issue. Mm-hmm. Where's your position on that in here?
Well, our view is that you get better environmental stewardship if you internalize these costs. If you look at that is a real cost. It's not just the economic exploitation; it's the environmental impacts. Because these companies are going to have to either clean up or any environmental degradation, or in the case of carbon, pay a price on carbon because that's where the world is going. And what we found, in fact, the companies were telling us this. I mean, we were a bit surprised to find out how strong this was, Evan. But companies were saying to us, look, this is a growing market access barrier. It's a trade barrier. It's a trade issue.
Well, if the government disagrees with you, does it make sense they wouldn't fund things that they don't agree with?
Well, it's if government doesn't want to, any government, if they don't want to, fund something that they don't think has any value, that's they're elected. They can make those kinds of choices. My obligation as CEO and the obligation of the Roundtable was to use that modest funding we had of $5.2 million a year, bring value with it, show that what we could do with it, and offer the best advice possible. And it's not just the last 5 years, it's 25 years, and I think we've done that.
All right, I got to leave it there, Mr. McLaughlin. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, Evan.
Interesting contradiction. He said John Baird got it wrong in the House. John Baird said 10 reports on a carbon tax. David McLaughlin said 3 reports. They didn't promote a carbon tax. Very interesting.